She stole my recipes, every single one. 7 years of late nights, burn scars, and flavor trials vanished the moment I walked into my parents' dining room. There stood my sister, basking in fake glory, but I didn't cry. I cooked up something better, a takedown so perfect, even saffron couldn't compete. The doorknob felt cold in my hand, but it couldn't prepare me for the chill that settled into my bones as I stepped into the dining room. My eyes scanned the room, taking in the sight that would change everything. My sister Lindsay stood in front of a decorative easel adorned with glossy recipe pages. Her name, printed in flowing cursive, was stamped on every single header. Local food bloggers hovered around her like bees to honey, snapping pictures and jotting notes. My mother, Patricia, stood nearby, draped in pearls and radiating pride. My father, Robert, grinned like a man who just won the lottery. Their smiles made my stomach twist. I froze mid-step as my gaze landed on the titles. Blackberry sage crumble, Northwest seafood stew. Hazelnut chicken with wild mushroom sauce. My recipes. 7 years of work. Hundreds of recipe tests. Thousands of dollars spent on rare ingredients. Late nights juggling culinary school and waitressing shifts. Those recipes weren't just dishes. They were pieces of my life. "Oh good, you made it," Mom chirped, motioning me over like I was a guest. "Come see what we've put together for Lindsay's big cookbook announcement." My feet moved, but my mind screamed. Dad gestured at the display with pride. 7 years of family recipes finally getting published. Lindsay's cookbook will put our name on the culinary map. The bloggers turned toward me. One of them, an older woman with salt and pepper hair, gave me a curious look. Lindsay cleared her throat and launched into what sounded like a well-rehearsed speech. "Cooking has always been my passion," she began, smiling for the cameras. "These recipes represent my journey from amateur home cook to finding my unique culinary voice." My stomach flipped. "I couldn't let this continue. Those are my recipes," I said quietly but firmly. The room went silent. 5 pairs of eyes stared at me. My pulse pounded in my ears. Memories came rushing in countless hours in my tiny apartment, perfecting that blackberry crumble, uploading recipes to the shared family cloud drive because Mom insisted it was safer there, and the day Lindsay offered to help organize my files, then the local cooking competition where I'd won first place. I remembered Mom whispering to another parent. Lindsay guided her. "She's the real talent." I remembered how family dinners stopped including questions about my cookbook progress. How their expressions would glaze over when I mentioned editors or deadlines. Mom moved toward me, placing a too firm hand on my shoulder. "Don't make a scene," she said sweetly, but her eyes were steel. "This is Lindsay's moment. Be happy for her." Before I could answer, Dad joined in, grabbing my elbow. "We've invested in this publishing deal. Don't ruin it." I pulled away. "Invested?" "We used the college fund," he muttered. "It's a good deal for the family name, my college fund. Grandma's gift to help me pursue my dreams." Lindsay stepped forward, eyes wide. "I thought we were doing this together, Kristen." "I always supported your cooking." The bloggers shifted uncomfortably. The older woman tilted her head, waiting. I looked around the room. I could walk away. Let them take the credit, keep the peace. But I thought about all the times I woke up at 4 a.m. to test pastries, the journal entries tracking recipe evolution. The sleepless nights and burnt fingers. No, this wasn't happening. Not like this. "I need to show you something," I said. And with that, I turned and walked out to my car, the weight of 7 stolen years pressing heavy on my chest. I returned moments later with my laptop cradled under one arm, my heart pounding with a cocktail of anger and adrenaline. The room's energy had shifted. Conversations halted as I placed the device on the dining room table. "You all might want to see this," I said, powering it on. My fingers moved with precision, navigating to a folder labeled Recipe Development Timeline. The first image filled the screen. Me, 7 years younger, in a cramped kitchen. 15 blackberry crumbles lined the counter behind me. My eyes were tired, flour streaked across my cheek, a timestamp clearly visible in the bottom corner. Gasps rose from the bloggers. Diane, the salt and pepper-haired journalist, leaned in closer. I kept clicking through. Hundreds of photos followed. Labeled, dated, organized. Every iteration, every test batch. I have over 3,000 development photos, I said, my voice level. Every single recipe Lindsay is claiming? Here's the journey, Mom stiffened. Dad crossed his arms, looking out the window like he could will this all away. Lindsay sat frozen, her smile gone, twisting the pearls at her neck. Here's my email exchange with Westbrook Publishing, dated last year, I said, opening the messages. My contract, signed, paid, my name on every page. Diane began snapping photos. Another blogger pulled out her laptop, typing furiously. Here's the copyright filings for each recipe, I added, opening another folder. All submitted over the past 2 years, official, documented, legally mine. Patricia stepped forward, attempting to shut my laptop. This is a misunderstanding. We can talk about this privately. I moved the laptop just out of her reach. No, we're not sweeping this under the rug. Not again, Dad finally spoke. This is a family matter. Bloggers, you need to go. Diane stood her ground. Actually, I want to hear more. Kristen, go on. I brought up Lindsay's credit card statements, lavish purchases from Williams-Sonoma, but no ingredient purchases. No cooking supply receipts, no sign of actual culinary work. Then I opened mine. Long lists of farmers' market buys, saffron orders, bulk flour purchases, my spreadsheet detailing every dollar spent. I worked double shifts for years to afford saffron, I said. Sold heirlooms to afford vanilla beans from Madagascar. Lindsay's cooking process? That was just Instagram shoots with food she didn't cook. Lindsay's voice cracked. I tried, Kristen. I really did. But I can't cook like you. I never could, Mom hissed at her. Be quiet. But Lindsay continued. I only did this because Mom and Dad insisted. They said you were wasting your talent. That someone had to do something with your recipes. I stared at them. So you chose the daughter who could smile for the camera? Not the one who actually did the work, Dad snapped. Your college fund financed the deal. That was our call. Diane looked up. Kristen, weren't you the one who won the Cascadia cooking competition last year? With that seafood stew, I nodded. First place, blue ribbon. My name. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. I glanced down, my lawyer. Excuse me, I said. This is about the cease and desist letter we just sent to the vanity publisher. The bloggers perked up. Diane mouthed, thank you. As the call ended, I looked at my family. From now on, nothing leaves my hands without a contract. You had access to my cloud drive. Not anymore. One by one, I revoked their permissions. Click, click. The look on Mom's face was priceless. Her lifeline to my work severed with a few keystrokes. I closed the laptop. 7 years of work. Of sacrifice. Of love. And you tried to erase me from it. But not today. The room was silent. Even Lindsay didn't speak. But the truth had landed like a cast-iron skillet to the ego. And I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, the silence broken only by the hiss of simmering broth. My inbox was already buzzing, bloggers following up, my publisher asking for statement drafts, and supportive messages pouring in from students and fellow chefs. But all I could think about was the taste of the stew that had won me everything and nearly cost me even more. I opened my recipe notebook, the pages dog-eared and splattered with years of work. For the first time in weeks, I felt something steady in my chest. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. That evening, I printed every recipe I intended to feature in my cookbook. I laid them across my kitchen counter like soldiers preparing for battle. Each was marked with my handwritten notes, flavor adjustments, oven temperatures tested to the decimal. Then, one by one, I began cooking them again. Every single one. The seafood stew, the hazelnut chicken, the crumble. I cooked, documented, photographed, and made notes. Margaret, my editor, had suggested adding personal stories. I was ready to go deeper than ever before. Each dish would now carry not just flavor, but feeling. The blackberry sage crumble would mention how I tested it 14 times in a single week, sleeping 4 hours a night. The hazelnut chicken would carry the story of the competition where I won my first ribbon. The seafood stew would share the memory of my grandmother guiding my hand while collecting mussels on the Oregon coast. A voicemail pinged. I played it without even glancing. Kristen, it's Aunt Carol. Your mom called. She says you're having some kind of breakdown. This cookbook stuff, honey. Family recipes belong to everyone. Call me back. Let's talk sense into you. Delete. I turned back to the pot on the stove. My broth thickened beautifully, the saffron shining like sunlight. That afternoon I got a knock on the door. It wasn't a delivery. It was Lindsay. She stood there without makeup in a hoodie and jeans, her eyes read, not her usual social media, they self. Can I come in? She asked, voice small. I stepped aside without speaking. She wandered through my kitchen like it was a museum. Her fingers traced the polished steel of my stand mixer. It smells amazing in here, she said. I'm testing recipes. My recipes. She flinched. Mom's been calling everyone. She says you're going through something. That you're jealous. I noticed. She sat on a stool. I continued cooking. I never wanted to be a chef, she said. Mom decided that for me. After you started winning competitions in high school. She said if I had the look, she could build the brand. I didn't respond. I'm not trying to excuse what I did. I know I was wrong. I didn't know how to say no to them. I finally looked at her. You didn't even try. Her eyes welled. I didn't think you'd ever actually publish. They said you were just a behind-the-scenes person. That you wouldn't follow through. So you stole everything. I didn't want to. I just didn't stop it when it started. Before I could reply, another knock. It was Margaret, my editor, carrying a stack of proofs. She paused when she saw Lindsay, raising an eyebrow. Should I come back? No, I said. Come in. She laid the proofs on my counter. We added 16 pages. Your stories bring the recipes to life. The team loves it. You can feel the emotion in every paragraph. It's real. She tapped the cover. It's finally happening, Kristen. This is going to change everything. Lindsay stared at the proofs in silence. She reached out but stopped short of touching them. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Chef Thomas. Reserve the restaurant. Book launch is set. Critics confirmed. Tuesday 7 p.m. I smiled. Margaret caught it. Good news? Very. Chef Thomas is hosting my launch. Lindsay blinked. Thomas Keller? From Laurel? He's been my mentor for 3 years. Margaret grinned. And the food blogger Diane? Her early article about you is trending. Everyone wants to know the story behind these recipes. My screen lit up again. A new message from Northwest Cuisine magazine. We want to feature you. Full page spread. Your story. Your photos. Lindsay looked down at her hands. The vanity press backed out. Said it was too risky. I nodded. It always was. I never wanted to be the cooking sister. I wanted to be a food photographer. Mom said that wasn't impressive enough. I looked at her, really looked. For once, she wasn't playing a role. She was just Lindsay. What do you want now? She hesitated. To make things right, if I can. I didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, I turned back to the stove, the scent of my grandmother's rosemary crust filling the room. It was my kitchen. My story, and I was finally ready to tell it. The scent of roasted hazelnuts and saffron filled Chef Thomas's restaurant as the final touches were placed on the long, elegantly set tables. My cookbook sat proudly on each place setting, my name embossed in gold above the title, From My Kitchen, a heritage of Northwestern flavors. The launch night had arrived. Food critics, bloggers, local chefs, and old cooking classmates began trickling in. Diane, the food journalist who'd championed my story, was already live tweeting from her seat near the front. In the kitchen, I adjusted my apron. Chef Thomas walked by and clapped me on the back. You earned this. Let them taste what authenticity is. As I stepped toward the main hall, my eyes locked onto 3 familiar figures seated front and center. My mother, her pearl necklace gleaming under the lights. My father stiff-backed in his best suit. And Lindsay, looking small in her chair, gaze darting nervously around the room. I froze. What are they doing here? I whispered. Chef Thomas followed my gaze and frowned. They showed up an hour early, said they had a right to be here. Family, apparently. Before I could decide how to react, Margaret appeared, clipboard in hand. Kristen, it's time. You ready? No, but I nodded. At the edge of the stage, Patricia appeared beside me, her voice sweet like oversteeped tea. Darling, such a wonderful crowd. Your father and I are so proud. I didn't respond. She leaned in, voice low. This family supported you for years. You owe us acknowledgement. I didn't move. Robert joined her. Think very carefully about what you say up there. There could be legal complications if we're left out. Then Lindsay approached. Her voice barely audible. Please, Kristen. Can't we just share the credit? Everyone makes mistakes. I looked at her. You tried to steal 7 years of my life. That's not a mistake. That was a decision. Patricia touched my wrist. Your grandmother would be heartbroken to see you act like this. I pulled away. Don't bring her into this. A staffer waved to signal my cue. I turned and walked away, heart pounding. The lights were blinding as I stepped on stage. The applause roared in my ears. I took my place at the podium. My grandmother's recipe cards sat neatly before me. Authenticity, I began, my voice clear and steady, is the most important ingredient in any recipe. The room quieted. I told my story, not the sanitized version, but the real one. The 3 a.m. baking experiments. The burns. The joy of getting a new flavor just right. The doubts, the years of invisibility. I shared how my grandmother taught me to cook with intention. That each dish wasn't just food, but a memory. Behind me, the screen showed photos from my journey. Me, hair tied back, stirring pots in a too-small apartment kitchen. Blue ribbons from competitions. Journal pages filled with sauce ratios. Chef Thomas stepped up next. I've mentored many chefs, he said. Kristen's voice in the kitchen is distinct, bold, and completely her own. Margaret followed. This cookbook arrived on my desk fully formed, no ghostwriting. No gimmicks, just passion and precision. Then I returned to the mic. There's been some confusion recently about the origins of this cookbook. Let me clear it up. These recipes are mine. Every test, every failure, every success, not a family collaboration. A personal journey. Gasps and murmurs spread through the audience. Some glanced at my family. To honor those still finding their voice, I continued, I'm announcing the Eleanor Marsh Culinary Scholarship. For chefs who need support, not sabotage, using my grandmother's maiden name was intentional. The room exploded in applause. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my parents rise and leave quietly. Patricia's face was blank. Robert looked furious. But Lindsay stayed. After the presentation, a line snaked around the venue. I signed books, took photos, and shook hands until my wrist ached. When the crowd thinned, I spotted Lindsay waiting at the very end, holding a copy of the book. Our eyes met. She walked over slowly. I bought it, she said. Didn't ask for a free one. Didn't feel right, I nodded. Can we talk? She asked. Depends, I replied. Are you here to admit what you did? Or ask for credit again? She hesitated. I don't know what I want, but all of this ... you earned it. I didn't smile. I just signed her book and handed it back. I hope someday you figure out what you actually want. Not what Mom told you to want. She clutched the book to her chest and walked away. Later that night, I sat alone in the quiet kitchen, staring at the last copy of the cookbook in my bag. I placed it next to my grandmother's recipe cards. They belonged together. This moment, this launch, wasn't just about vindication. It was about creation. I had taken my story back. And the world had finally tasted the truth. The morning after the launch, I sat at my kitchen table, the cookbook open beside me. Notifications flooded my phone. Reviews, reposts, interview requests. The public had chosen a side, and for once it was mine. Diane's article topped trending lists. Chef Thomas's restaurant was flooded with reservations asking specifically for dishes from my cookbook. Orders for signed copies exploded. And yet I felt oddly still. I flipped to the final page of my book, a scanned image of my grandmother's bourbon apple pie recipe, annotated with her note. Perfected by Kristen Asher. This wasn't just success. It was a reclamation. Midway through organizing receipts and development timelines for press inquiries, my phone buzzed. It was Lindsay. I never wanted to be a cookbook author, she said when I answered. I waited. Mom's locked herself in her room. Dad's threatening to sue the publisher even though they already dropped our deal. I stayed silent. We need to talk about how to move forward. No, I said quietly. You need to decide if you're ready to tell the truth. My cookbook is launching next week. My website goes live tomorrow, and I'm not shrinking anymore. She didn't argue. For once. Later that day, I uploaded my press kit. It included screenshots of family social media posts, emails from mom trying to delay my publication, and statements from my cooking students supporting my authorship. Margaret emailed me a note. Let the facts speak louder than the spin. Then came the manila envelope. Margaret brought it by personally. This came to the publisher 3 years ago, marked for you. We were told to give it to you once your cookbook was finalized. Inside were dozens of recipe cards in my grandmother's handwriting, yellowed at the edges, some ink smudged with time. At the top, a letter. For Kristen, who truly understands these recipes. I cried, not out of sadness, but recognition. All this time, I thought I was alone in my love for this craft. But she knew, she saw me. I added the apple pie recipe to the manuscript as the final bonus page. The story would now end the way it began, with truth. That evening, I got an invitation to guest host a morning cooking segment on local TV. They wanted me to share the story behind the dishes. Only if we talk about the journey, I said. That's why we want you, the producer replied. It was surreal watching the industry that once ignored me now leaning in to hear my story. Margaret forwarded emails from national publications. One wanted a feature. Another offered a book tour. My website went live at midnight. Within hours, messages poured in from aspiring chefs. Thank you for standing up for your work. Your story gives me hope. In that moment, I knew it had all been worth it, the loneliness, the late nights, the betrayal. The next morning, a knock at the door pulled me from a new test batch of blackberry crumble. It was Lindsay. She held a small package. Her hands trembled. This belonged to you, she said, handing me a velvet box. Inside was our grandmother's antique cookie cutter, the maple leaf. Mom said I should keep it to feel more dotic, but it was always yours. I took it without a word. The metal warmed from her hands. We sat in the kitchen. I poured us both coffee. I've been seeing a therapist, she admitted. She's helping me understand how Mom and Dad shaped us both. I know that story too well, I said. They wanted you quiet and hardworking. They wanted me presentable and public. They never really wanted us. Just the image, she nodded. I don't want that anymore. I want something real. So what do you want? She hesitated. I love food styling, photography. Maybe I can still do that. Honestly. I looked at her carefully. She seemed different. Not a perfect sister, but a person trying. I know someone looking for a food stylist for a new blog series, I said. If you're ready to build something real, tears welled in her eyes. Would you really help me, after everything? You helped tear me down. Maybe you can help build something new. As she left, I returned to my recipe notebook. Beside it sat my grandmother's maple leaf cutter. This kitchen, these words, this journey. They were all mine. Rebuilding wasn't just possible. It had already begun. 6 months passed. My cramped apartment kitchen was a memory replaced by a bright, modern test kitchen with polished countertops and natural light pouring through wide windows. It was mine, built from the success of my first cookbook. Framed reviews lined one wall. The most prominent, a glowing feature from the New York Times, called my voice a rare fusion of culinary skill and emotional honesty. I moved with confidence now. Each step in my new kitchen felt earned. That evening, I hosted a small dinner for the people who believed in me. Chef Thomas arrived first, carrying champagne. Margaret brought fresh herbs instead of flowers. Diane showed up with a tray of blackberry sage crumbles she'd tried to make from my book. They didn't turn out quite like yours, she said with a laugh. I tasted one and smiled. They're perfect. One chair remained empty. The doorbell rang. Lindsay. She stepped in holding a small wrapped box. For you, she said. Just a thank you. Inside was a printed photo of my grandmother and me, baking together in her old kitchen. The frame was engraved, the true keeper of our culinary heritage. We ate, we laughed, we toasted. And when the night was quiet, Lindsay leaned in and said, I'm working with that food blogger you introduced me to, styling shoots. No recipe theft involved. I raised my glass. To honest beginnings, she added, and to owning our stories. I wake early the next morning, the quiet hum of my kitchen greeting me like an old friend. I open my grandmother's box of recipe cards and begin planning the next book. The past no longer owns me. My journey is stitched into every dish, every note, every flavor. For years, I thought I had to earn my family's approval to be worthy. But now I know the only validation I ever needed was the truth of my own story. These recipes are more than meals. They're memories, resilience, and proof that the best revenge is living and cooking authentically. If you were moved by this story, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded. Your voice matters. Your story matters. Own it.